What history books are they reading? When has the Hindu culture ever? They want to make it like, oh, so many Hindu kings, they, killed off some Muslim. When did it happen? When? I'm sorry to say, like, it would be a drop in the ocean in comparison to how much persecution the Abrahamic religions have done. And to them, it's shocking that we are still alive and thriving. We're the third most followed religion on the planet, despite being persecuted since the beginning of time. The BBC is so skewed. The mainstream media is completely skewed against the Hindu narrative. Sorry, I'm just going to add something here that I remember. It's so skewed. The BBC is so skewed that when the persecutions were happening in Bangladesh last year against the Hindus and killing off the devotees, and every Diwali, every Kali Puja, Durga Puja, they have their festival is to destroy the Hindu temples. BBC did not report a single article, and within 2 days or something, there was the India-Pakistan match, and Muslims in India were celebrating that Pakistan had won. So the police came and, said, hey, dude, you live in India. Please don't, celebrate when we lose. I think that's uncool. So they, arrested some of them and put them in jail. Immediately, that was in the BBC News. Immediately. I'm like, अच्छा, तो agenda क्या है? क्या करेंगे? कितना dismantle करेंगे? कुछ नहीं होने वाला. बस हमें अंदर से, we must really, truly understand what is our identity and follow that. Satyameva jayate. It will always be victorious. The ultimate reality, the absolute truth, always, prevails.
Namaste and welcome to Chitti Media. My name is Vaibhavi Naik and I will be your host for today. My guest today is Kishori Jani ji, who is joining us from the UK. Namaste, Kishori ji.
Namaste. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Kishori ji, let's dive right into the questions. You may be aware of the recent event. How do you view the entire sequence of these events?
Right. I would say it was quite inevitable that we would get to this point at some point. There's been so much that we have held within us, maybe as a Hindu community, for so many years and centuries. The way I view it is it was almost just a matter of time that finally I feel like the Hindu voice is becoming a little bit more pronounced. Modi ji has really given us an opportunity to actually be, comfortable in our skin and have the courage to have a voice. So much is coming out in the recent years. Kashmir Files was a great example of us just being able to express our history through our lens. And the recent, people think that it's all just a bit of communal noise and just it's to be rejected. But actually, if we look at it, it was just a matter of time that we would get to this point where we push back. When we have so much, what's the word? So much coming onslaught of Hindu phobia and Hindu kind of derogatory comments and remarks, and it was only a matter of time that we would find our voice and be and just say enough. We will now push back. We will now voice our thoughts for once, our questions. But having said that, when you're finding your voice for the first time in a long time, we can tend to falter and make mistakes. It's only a matter of time that was meant to happen, and it gives other people courage to ask those questions as well. Why is it that this is the first time we are able to push back in this way? But I would also, really highlight that we can do it slightly differently. We don't have to stoop to the same levels that maybe the media want us to. It's a media frenzy. The way they create the news and they share it, it's just clickbait almost. It's almost as if the media want us to fight. They pick these characters that go online and just go at each other. But that is not the tradition. That is not the Vedic tradition of Sambad. That is not the way that Satya will come out, and the truth cannot be, churned in this way. It would be so much more beneficial for us if we took notes from our own great heritage, Vedic culture. A beautiful shlok by in the Manu Samhita comes to mind, where it speaks about the power of speech, and when we speak the truth, what it should be like. So in the Manu Samhita, Manu, the original Manushya, and from whom we get most of our culture, the sutras, they all come from him. So he says, Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. Truth should be palatable. It should be loving. It should come from a place of concern. It should be pleasant to hear, right? Na bruyat satyam apriyam. Do not speak truth that is unpleasant. So when we're speaking the truth, we don't have to sacrifice our intent. We don't have to sacrifice the goodness in our heart and why are we doing this? We don't have to stoop to the level of name calling and personal, taking personal digs. Then he says, Priyam cha nanuratham bruyat, esha dharmaha sanatanaha. So actually part of the Sanatan Dharma is that the last bit he says, and never speak the untruth even if it's pleasant. So we are not just speaking pleasantries. It's not that we just want to make everyone happy, so we just say, हाँ सब एक है, सब ठीक है, उन्होंने जो भी बोला चलेगा चलेगा, ऐसी बात नहीं है. हम नहीं कह रहे कि सब कुछ जाने दो. You must speak the truth, and there is a way to speak the truth that is not violent. That is not. These are some things that we can work on. We can take steps to move forward in our communication, but overall, to me, it was just inevitable. It's only a matter of time that we find our voice, and we will now push back. I think the world knows. What was great about it is it has made the Hindu voice global. Everyone knows that we will not just keep taking it. And thanks to I hope many more voices become heard, so long as we, fine tune the voice, fine tune what we have to say.
It was very nicely put, Kishori Ji. Moving on, after the Ayodhya verdict, people are looking at other sites that are speculated to have been built over mandirs. And the latest place to join that list is the Gyanvapi Mosque in Varanasi. Is this new movement, not just by Hindus, but by all Indians to reclaim their history and to tell the story of their historic persecution, is it symbolic of Indic revival, of a revival of our ethos?
Absolutely. I feel it is very much so. I'm not so sure I like the word indic. I guess if that's the global term used. I would like to say Vedic civilization, because ultimately that is the source of all of our knowledge and all of our heritage and culture. So I'd like to give the true source the credit. So the Vedic culture it's an eternal thing. So many millenniums have gone where people have again and again tried to destroy it. But there is a revival, and thank God, thank the Lord for it, because it just takes one person, someone like Modi ji, to come into prominence that can really just uplift and reinvigorate Sanatan Dharma, because the truth can never be hidden. The truth can never be destroyed because it is an eternal reality. But because Modi ji has come into prominence or power, like I said, we've found our voice. We've gotten, for the first time in, let's say, how many centuries, what, 1,000 years? We've been persecuted for so long by so many people. And finally, we have someone who is not in it for himself. He is not in it for any kind of ulterior reasons. It's not. He's not in it for the name or the fame or the cash prize at the end. He's not in it to further his lineage and his family, trust funds. So this is such a rare moment. He's a real sadhu. He's a tapasvi, and it has completely shaken up the Hindu community to the core, because it really helps us think, okay, we were, all of this anyay, all of this injustice has been done to us, but if we just become confident in our core, without being, we don't want to persecute in return. This is not a revengeful, now I'm going to get you back. ऐसा नहीं, हम random masjid को नहीं तोड़ रहे हैं. We're not going around trying to incite violence and hatred. We just want to, just some reparations. We just need the reparations. I grew up, I was born in Vrindavan, right next to Mathura. I grew up in Vrindavan. So just seeing all the temples, the Krishna Janmasthan, the Keshav Mutt, the Madan Mohanji temple. If you ever come to Braj, you'll see all the temples that were destroyed by the great Aurangzeb. And then when you hear about the Mughal Raj and how it's described in history, your blood just it boils, and you just suppress it. You think, okay, well, kya kare? History hai. Ab ho gaya so ho gaya. But that is not true, because that repression and oppression goes deep into your DNA, and it sits there and it gets passed down to generations unless the reparations are made. Unless someone like Modi ji can come up and say, you know what, let's just repair the really deep-rooted wounds. Let's just, stitch it up a little, put a Band-Aid on it so that we don't pass on that trauma anymore. It's so powerful what he's doing, because if we don't do that, we will constantly have hate in our heart for the Muslims. We will. It's natural, because everywhere you look, you can see the vestiges of this, the destruction. So the Indic revival, this Vedic revival, is, again, I would say, inevitable, and it's so timely. I'm so grateful that we are looking towards all the main centers, the main temples and of our faith, and we're reviving it, because it will help all relations in the long run. If we can actually revive this to its to the necessary strength that the Hindus can feel comfortable, then we won't continue to be at each other's throats so much. Like, if you owe me like $1,000 and you say, okay, here, I'll give you some of it back, I won't have the same amount of disdain for you. Just a little bit. Give me back something that you owe me. And if you look at the West, I might be going off on a tangent here, but all of the atrocities that have happened in the West, there are reparations that are being made. At least acknowledgement, and to whatever degree the reparation can be made, that is actively done. If you look at the slave trade issues, the Holocaust, and the whole Black Lives Matters, this is an indication that trauma and the wound is deep, and there must be some kind of communication and reparation, and that really, I think it will help in the long run. So yes, I fully support the finding and the restoration of all the main places of faith, the mandirs that have been destroyed, and I really commend the Modi Sarkar to keep going, and what I love about him is he's doing it in a very in the most peaceful way possible. He does not. People can't appreciate this because they want to point the finger, but truly it could be much worse. He's trying to be as reasonable as possible, going through the court systems, and so we've got to give credit where it's due.
Absolutely, Kishori. Connected to the questions that are asked to the Hindu community is a broader conversation of civilizational conflict, conflict between our civilization and other groups, other religious groups. We keep seeing these attempts, to dismantle global Hindutva. And this movement, the people that lead this movement, they do exactly what this name suggests. They try to, they attempt to. Now, in terms of whatever has happened now, could you explain to us what is this conflict? Why is this conflict? Why does it exist? And what do we need to be aware of in terms of this conflict in general, as informed, as engaged Sanatanis?
It's a great question. I'm not sure I'm the perfect person to answer this because it's a very deep, layered question you're asking. I think the fundamental crux is a misunderstanding between the Abrahamic religions and our Vedic Sanatan Dharma. That they, whenever I try to understand why is Hindu culture so scary to the West, I try to understand why is it so absurd for Abrahamic cultures to think, oh, they're worshiping the cow. Like, why is it so scary? What's going to happen? What's the worst that could happen if we keep worshiping, trees and stones? And but truly, it's a fear. It's a fear that there's so much resilience. Our faith is so powerful, so deeply ingrained, and we are not shaken by how much people have tried to change us or persecute us, whatever. The fundamental difference between the two schools of thought is that one wants to say that there's just one God and there's only one version of it, and everything else must be sort of subdued. That noise should be canceled out. So they're afraid that, when you hear the dismantling global Hindutva conversations, you just think, my God, there's so much misinformation. There's so much misunderstanding. They clearly don't understand what the Hindu philosophy is, because if they did, there would be no fear. The idea that there's just even monotheism exists within the Vedic culture. I'm, a Hare Krishna, I'm a Vaishnava, and I'm monotheistic. My understanding is there's one God, there's a supreme Lord, and everything is a manifestation of Him. So, without fully understanding what Hinduism is, they are afraid because they think that it's going to be like this, right-wing terrorist situation where we're just going to try to subdue everyone. But that has never happened in our history. What history books are they reading? When has the Hindu culture ever? They want to make it like, oh, so many Hindu kings, they, killed off some Muslims. When did it happen? When? I'm sorry to say, like, it would be a drop in the ocean in comparison to how much persecution the Abrahamic religions have done. And to them, it's shocking that we are still alive and thriving. We're the third most followed religion on the planet, despite being persecuted since the beginning of time. So it is, to me, it's just a signal of jealousy and misunderstanding. Like, if you don't understand something, you fear it, right? Whatever you don't understand, you fear. So to really make an organization like dismantling global Hindutva, like, to me, it's absurd. It's absurd. And then they want to actually be like, oh, let's make Islamophobia Day because, that's necessary. So you can see the agenda of the global agenda. It's they want to make it as, Abrahamic religions are peaceful and the Eastern religions are very strange and weird and they drink cow urine and just complete absurdity. They don't want to accept the depth, the ancient wisdom that absolutely blows the other philosophies out of the park. I'm sorry to say, there's no comparison. true Sanatani, if they understand to their core that we have everything we need. The Vedic philosophy gives us everything we could possibly need. There was a meme on one of the Vaishnava humor sites that even the Christians believe, oh, the Hare Krishnas have an answer for everything, meaning the Vedic culture has an answer for everything. No matter what you ask, where did we come from? Where are we going? Why did this happen? Why does that? Everything we have an answer for. We never tell somebody, don't ask that question. So deeply within us, if we believe it, then I wouldn't be too worried. क्या करेंगे? कितना dismantle करेंगे? कुछ नहीं होने वाला. बस हमें अंदर से we must really truly understand what is our identity and follow that. Satyameva jayate. It will always be victorious. The ultimate reality, the absolute truth, always prevails. It really does bug me, I'll be honest, because I live in the UK and the BBC is so skewed. The mainstream media is completely skewed against the Hindu narrative. Sorry, I'm just going to add something here that I remember it's so skewed. The BBC is so skewed that when the persecutions were happening in Bangladesh last year against the Hindus and killing off the devotees, and every Diwali, every Kali Puja, Durga Puja, they have their festival is to destroy the Hindu temples. BBC did not report a single article, and within 2 days or something, there was the India-Pakistan match, and Muslims in India were celebrating that Pakistan had won. So the police came and said, "Hey, dude, you live in India. Please don't celebrate when we lose. I think that's uncool." So they arrested some of them and put them in jail immediately. That was in the BBC News. Immediately, I'm like, "Acha, to agenda kya hai? Hindu log, right wing hai. They're imbalanced. So you just what can you do? This is the reality is they cannot handle. Why is India still thriving? Why is it still so resilient? So I think the best thing we can do in return is to just follow even with more dignity and more determination to understand our identity even more, and really join the journalism and the media, because we need more Hindu voices. There's one thing that we got to give to Islam and Christianity is that they have really covered all the bases. They have the narrative, at least the global narrative. So if young Hindus are watching, I would say get into journalism. Let's help make our voices heard.
I also want to ask, how do you think the current government is dealing with this hatred towards Hindus and our Sanatani ecosystem? I must add that both these groups, the government and our Sanatani ecosystem, they are in disagreement with each other. So, how are they tackling this hatred separately?
Right. So you're talking about the hatred against Sanatan Dharma, against.
Yeah, against Sanatani.
Okay. Well, I just feel like we've got to cut the government some slack. We go to India quite regularly, and I can see every time there's a distinct change for the better. Just in the last couple of years, if you look at the roads, the airports, the state of India is the shape has completely changed. So as much as we want to complain about the government, they have to do their political thing. They cannot just, Nupur Sharma may say something, the government can't be like, nahi, sahi bola, they can't get involved. I remember when the Bangladesh thing happened, I was a bit shocked that Modi ji kyun kuch bol nahi rahe. Kyun kuch bol nahi rahe? We can't expect that the government will play from the same book as a regular Sanatani, as a regular citizen. And they shouldn't, actually. So we may complain a lot about it, but we have to be able to separate what is the duty of the government from what is our duty. We as citizens also enjoy some rights and privileges, and we must do our part as well. They can't do everything. हम घर बैठ के मतलब complain बहुत कर सकते हैं कि उन्होंने ये गलत किया, वो गलत किया, ये क्यों नहीं कर रहे. But that is not also the Sanatani way. We just appreciate what they are giving. Let's focus on what Modi ji has accomplished. And instead of trying to tear down his government, which is working so hard for the Hindu cause, I mean, if he makes a few mistakes, so what? In comparison to what? Let us just put things in perspective. We are so used to criticizing and nitpicking, part of the government, that ये मतलब हमारे डीएनए में भी ये this habit is really deep. So yes, they're not perfect. I was there, having I go to India to have my children because I'm very attached to them being born in India, so that they have a very deep connection. But I was there when the whole demonetization happened, and it was inconvenient. It was very inconvenient, and some might say it was a complete flop. Some might say that, but he was trying. I would say that at least the intent is that Modi ji is trying. He is trying to fix this complete mess that we have been left in after, centuries of just, you know, just completely destroying our Rashtra. He's trying his best, and we have, as a Hindu collective, we have a responsibility to try to help as opposed to tear it down even further. I don't know if you were asking for more specific events because I'm not really sure, but I hope that's okay.
No, that really does answer the question. Because we asked how are they tackling this hatred?
How are they
And
tackling the hatred?
yeah,
Um,
he
yeah,
said they're doing what they can.
yes,
They're doing more than what has been done so far. That answers the question.
right. I mean, it's. I don't think you can tackle hatred. I don't think hatred is something that can be tackled. Like if I hate something, if you try to come and convince me otherwise, okay, sure, you don't hate, Karela. आप चाहे जितना भी बोलेंगे मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला क्योंकि वो मेरा अंदरूनी स्वभाव है. That is my internal choice. The only way hatred can be tackled is from within. It has to come from our own community. It has to come from, our own sangha. We get affected by our association. So Modi ji sitting up there cannot be like, the government cannot be like, okay, well, don't hate each other. Like बच्चे हैं हमारे, हम कभी ऐसे नहीं बोल सकते अच्छा अच्छा don't fight. They do what they see. Meaning in the household, I can't tell them, okay, don't fight, don't do this, don't hate each other. They just pick up the atmosphere around us. So of course, reviving the temples and pushing the Hindu narrative is going to create some friction, no doubt. But if we do it with dignity and respect, and we do it through the proper channels of government, then no one can fault us in the long run. And that's what Modi ji is trying. So, can he remove hatred? No, that's like saying, can you remove evil from the world? I don't think it's his responsibility. And, that we're going to, no matter what he tries, it seems to make very little difference in that front. So, I don't have that expectation of him.
All right, Kishori ji. Um, let's move on to the Indian diaspora around the world. Um, a sizable proportion of our scattered Indian diaspora is absorbed into their host culture, the country that they currently live in or where they have been raised, where they have been living for quite some time, for whatever reason. And that's a beautiful process. That's acculturation. But they seem to be slightly straying farther from dharma and not deeply rooted, not as deeply rooted as they should be. However, recently there is a noticeable rise of this dharmic conscience, this civilization conscience within the diaspora. What can we do to significantly accelerate this process of civilizational revival?
Beautiful. I think we're doing something right now. I think conversations like this really, for me, it's a big part of where I get my inspiration from. I listen to a lot of wonderful speakers just on YouTube or anywhere, and you can really get a lot of inspiration. I think dialogue between, thoughtful people really elicits a lot on behalf of moving people forward. It can be quite a powerful tool to inspire people, and uh, I don't blame people who have emigrated, and it's really hard. I remember when I first went to America, I was about 18, and it was when it's such a culture shock. I was raised very very sheltered in a very dharmic sense, and when I got to LA, I was like, oh my God, you really try to fit in. It's so overwhelming. You just kind of shed your identity immediately if you're young and impressionable. And most Indians, when they go abroad, they have to fit in. They have to try their best to kind of, um, you know, be successful there. So it's natural. And I think over time, they're realizing that if we lose our connection with our roots, uh, you know, a tree with shallow roots is going to fall over. And you start feeling that. I remember feeling that, oh goodness, there's something missing in my heart. You kind of in the beginning years, you enjoy the freedom and the whole Western hype about just do whatever you want. Don't care about anyone else. Like there's a real push to kind of shed tradition and shed the shackles of culture, and um, then very slowly you realize you're like, well, okay, how much are you going to shed? And you realize, oh my God, the roots, as soon as your roots are disconnected, what's going to happen? What tree with shallow roots bears fruit? You know, you start feeling what's missing. And naturally, then Indians who have maybe been there for second generation, then they start thinking, "Acha, ab thoda culture ke bare mein pata lagana hai." They after a while, after they settle, become a bit successful, and they've got things going, then we can revive our identity. So I would say that to accelerate it, we've got to have these dialogues which can highlight the beauty of our culture and why we need it, why we so desperately need it, because it is actually the solution to all of our problems, literally. Like, if we could follow the Sanatana Dharma, the Vedic ancient wisdom that we have, it will solve everything. The climate issues, the capitalist agendas, the all of the anarthas that are within us can actually be worked on if we understand why do we follow these cultural things, why do we do these pujas, why do we respect the elders, why do we respect nature, why don't we kill all the animals rampantly and all the trees on the planet. Like, it's just everything falls into place if we have a wholesome understanding of God's creation and all the creatures within it. So I think it just takes a little minute when a Hindu goes abroad and they adjust. It's natural. The acculturalization, what the word that you used, to acclimatize yourself to your host culture. That's natural, and it's actually advisable. You cannot don't come to the UK and start saying, I want Vedic laws. Don't do that, as some other religions want to do. They want to establish their own law in a different country. That's not wise. That's not appropriate either. So, no, you follow your own culture deeply within, but you must acclimatize. So, to accelerate it, to facilitate it, I would say that the world has become a small place because of the internet. We can continue to support each other and truly encourage each other to reconnect with our roots, to deepen the roots, to do the swadhyaya, to study ourselves, not just get misled by the Western idea of Hinduism. There's a real issue about this neo-Hinduism that everything is one. There's not really it's just energy. There's no real God. It's just a oneness. Murti puja ki koi zarurat nahi hai. Mandir mein jana ki koi zarurat nahi hai. Read the scriptures. Why do we do these rituals? Why it helps us? These sanskaras, the Shoda samskaras, they are there for our benefit. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater and get swept up by the Western version of Hinduism. So I hope that answered the question.
It did.
In fact, I actually, I appreciate when I go to Dubai or anywhere and I hear the prayer call, I think, instead of criticizing them, I think, my God, look at their faith. They like, let's appreciate it. Which Hindu would do this? Go out on the street. हम जब Hare Krishna वाले जब संकीर्तन करने के लिए जाते हैं, which is part of our culture, we get criticized. अरे तुम लोग बाहर जाके बहुत हंगामा करते हो. But you've got to appreciate कि they are fearless. So I would say that you've got to, when you believe in something deeply, hey, give them kudos, the courage to actually be like, you know what? I'm going to call out to God in front of everyone. I'm going to force everyone to hear it, even if they don't want to. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm not gonna knock someone for calling out God. God, that's I will appreciate that they're trying.
That's something that people need to learn. All of us need to learn, actually. Because after all, Sanatana Dharma is about live and let live.
Yes. And actually, no matter what you call God, if you are truly in love with Him and truly want to accept Him in your life, it doesn't matter if you call Him Allah or Krishna or Jesus. I truly believe that if you follow your tenets of your religion without agenda and without trying to, impose on others, which is truly the Vedic culture. We are not a proselytizing or converting kind of religion. And so long as live and let live, like you're saying, then I've got full respect. I think that I'm sure God appreciates that they're calling out to Him.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net.